Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do another video for you guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. My beautiful radio voice going. Let's talk about this. Got those veins. Arm looking all hard and vascular like a cock. All right, let's talk about sets to failure versus leaving a lot of reps in reserve. This is always an interesting point. I know it's debated a lot, and I've had people say, but Dr. Mike says leaving several reps in reserve is way better for stimulus fatigue. And I'm like, I just don't agree with that. And a lot of experts don't agree. So you can't say because he's a researcher and has a PhD that that's the be all end all, because there are other researchers with PhDs who disagree, right? So that's not an argument. And it's no disrespect intended to him. But I would say definitely as a coach, my observations, and also when it comes down to why is he saying that? Because he wants you to do really high volumes of training. And yes, you can do more volume total if you leave more reps in reserve. The problem with that idea, is that that's where we start getting into these crazy high volume protocols where 20, 30 sets are being done in the lab and they're getting good results because they're leaving 4 or 5 reps in reserve. But then we come over to, if they didn't do that, would they even need those sets to continue to see progress? And again, that data is very questionable. But most of the data that we see on sets to failure, we've seen studies that show as few as 5 to 10 sets produced maximum muscle growth, not just diminished returns beyond that, but no returns beyond that per week. This has been noted a lot. And again, no one's telling you to only do one set. Multi-set studies have always consistently shown more muscle growth. We need to be clear there. And we know at a minimum 3 sets in a workout per muscle group always produces more muscle growth than 2 or 1. Okay, so no one's arguing, well, in that case, just do nothing. Do 1 set. Well, that's not what I'm telling you to do, because that's not data supported either. However, when we look at data taken to really hard sets, truly hard sets, what do you see? In a single workout, 5 to 10 sets produces maximum growth, sometimes 10 sets in a week. But we've seen where 5 sets once a week in some cases, in some muscles, actually produced amazing results, the best results. We always see studies where 5 to 6 sets done to failure, even in advanced lifters, always produces muscle growth in the lab. Every single time. Let me state that again. Every study that has been done on trained lifters who have a minimum strength, have been consistently going to the gym at least 2 years, right? Every one of those studies, 5 or 6 sets done to failure per week, every single time produced robust muscle growth without fail. If you find a study different, I could be wrong, but there's going to be 20 or 25 that show that it happened, to match with the rare one you might dig up somewhere. Okay? Be aware of this. The point being, if you are trying to make the most efficient use of your gym time, it makes sense to take your sets, if it can be done safely, to 0 reps in reserve, and then failure on lifts you can. What's the difference? What do we mean lifts we can versus just safely to 0? All right, perfect example, a squat and a bench press. You probably don't want to fail on very often. You're probably going to need safety pins if you're going to do 0 reps in reserve. In fact, I'm going to say on a squat, you should use safety pins on a warm-up. Anyone ever seen someone's hand pull a hamstring or have it cramp up and get a Charlie horse on a 50% squat on a warm-up? What happens? A lot of times they crumble to the ground. Put your safety up. Use your safeties every time. Set them in the correct position. Be aware of your ranges of motion. I see those clients all the time. They'll do one and it's like, why is those safety arms a foot below your ass to grass squat? Stop doing that. Put them in place. Because of practicality, I get that a squat or a bench press to failure, not the safest thing in the world. Okay? If you got safety pins, okay, it's okay. Just be aware you're going to have to unload it to do your second set. If you're going to do more than 1 set, probably should just go till you get a really grindy, fatiguing rep that's about no reps in reserve. That's perfectly reasonable. You may not want to fail very often. If you do, make sure you got the safety pins perfect. Really only do it on your last set because you're going to have to take all the plates off. You don't want to reload the bar twice. Just a pain in the butt, particularly after a failed set, right after a failed rep. I get it on those. A skull crusher, maybe not safe. But what about a curl? Any type of curl. Preacher curl, standing curl, incline curl, perfectly safe. How about a pull-up? What happens if you fail? You just turn loose of the bar. How about a deadlift? What happens if you fail? You just let go of the bar. How about a row? You just turn loose of the bar. How about a lateral raise? How about an upright raise? All those you can take your failure. There's no risk as long as you're not grinding through. So when I talk about failure and people talk about extra fatigue, there's no real serious extra fatigue over a rep or two in reserve. There's no real fatigue. It's minimal. It'll let you do less sets to get all the muscle growth you want. You can get out of the gym quicker. Get your training done, get done. Quality work, get out. Now, for people who say, well, it's not as much growth. Really, because, I mean, I will take a counter argument that I heard Dr. Mike make years ago. Okay? So, and this would be my response to that. Mike said, and if I'm going to paraphrase him, as you get closer to failure, all the way to failure, every single rep has a higher quality training stimulus. Okay, so he's like, about those last 5 reps, let's say you're doing a weight you can do, we'll just call it 10 reps. Like around rep 6, you start getting some growth response. Rep 7 is a higher quality rep. Rep 8 is a higher quality rep. All the way to rep 10, he goes, that 10th rep, as long as you can complete it, but it's grindy and it's your 10 rep max. That rep actually is probably a slightly superior rep to rep 8 or 9 in terms of its ability to stimulate the most muscle fibers. So using that, even if we take what he said there, either he was being honest or he wasn't. If we think that that was his expert opinion, and I think it probably sounds reasonable to me, it seems to match the way I understand the human body works. Like, okay, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. So doesn't it make sense to train there? In other words, if you did 2 sets to failure, you're going to get 10 of those reps, and 2 of them are going to be the highest quality reps. Or we'll call it 0. You know, it doesn't have to be failure. It could be 0 reps in reserve. You were straining hard with good form, but straining through that last rep, knowing you cannot get another. Okay. But if you did 2 reps in reserve and did 3 sets, what would happen? You would get 1 less quality rep if we're counting that last 5, and none of them would be as high of quality as the last rep you got on the first 2. You got a more robust training response. Even if the fatigue is slightly higher, it was 2/3 of the volume. I don't buy the argument on the stimulus to fatigue there. I think doing the hard sets is the most efficient way to train. Again, assuming you can do it safely and you know what failure is. Straight sets to failure, not grinding, not drop sets, not cheat reps to get the last reps, strict controlled reps, all the way to 0 reps in reserve or to momentary muscle failure. And people have gotten fantastic results doing that for decades. And I think the research and data supports it, actually, in my opinion. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.